Hello, good day. Let's start this new lesson for Unreal Engine 5.7.2.
Okay, in this video, I will show you how to make and implement a simple weapon pickup. So what I'll do, I'll right click Blueprint class, and select Blueprint Actor. So I'll call this BP Sword Pickup. I'll double click to open. So the first thing I'll do, I'll add a mesh. I will choose a static mesh. I'll call this weapon mesh. So you have the weapon mesh selected here. So I need to put a static mesh. So what I'll do, let's type in sword. This will be the sword mesh. Now, I want to show you that we cannot see the sword right about now. But if I press, like, let's say 40 and press enter, this will be the sword. Now, I want to mention there's an issue with this static mesh. This static mesh, it looks very small in the viewport right about now. When we complete the tutorial and the character is able to pick up the sword, this sword will be too big. So I'll just show you this here, but I'll eventually have to rescale the size of the sword. So now I'll need to add back up here and add a collision. So I'll add a spear collision. For the spear collision, I have it selected. Let's make this about 3. So it's a wide area. So now that the spear collection is selected, just like how we did for the light and how we did for the door, you just scroll down and we need to add the events, the on component begin overlap. And go back here, make sure the sphere collision is selected, then select this on component and overlap, just like we did in the previous videos. So we want our character to be able to pick up the sword. So our character has to be able to interact with this item. So we need to cast to BP, third person character. And we need to turn the star variable. So right click, select promote to a variable. So we can give the variable a name, but we're not going to give it a name here because it's already the third person character variable. We already know what we are dealing with. And now we have to enable an input. So right click, select enable input, and we have to also disable the input. So right click, disable input. Just like we implemented in the previous examples, we have to create the player controller and connect it here. So type in get player controller, plug it here, plug it here. We go by the enable input, we enable this here. For the end overlap, we will duplicate this. So press Control D, connect this here, connect this here, pull this down, drag this across. We have to get the E key because we want the E key to be the key that allow us to grab the sword. So right click, type E key. We want to press here, select two once. Because we don't want to spam the E key. We want to just press the E key once and to be able to pick up the sword. Now we need to go to the blueprint to our character. So we go to the blueprint here and we need to create an event. So right click and type custom event. Well, custom event here. And you will call this event pick up sword. We need to add the function attach actor to component. So right click, type attach actor to component. Connect this. For the parent, you'll use this mesh here. Drag this across. So if you go to the viewport, you can see this mesh. That's the mesh we selected. Let's find the mesh. Double click. You want to find the socket name. So this is the socket you will be using. This is the character. You want the hand, right hand. This is the socket name here. We already have a preview object here. I'm going to rotate the preview object here. The name of the socket is hand slot R. So right click, copy both names. Go back to the event graph, type the socket name here, press Ctrl V. That's the socket name. For location rule, we select snap targets. So for these here, all these will be snap to targets. We press compile. So next thing we do here, we are back in the blueprint here. Bring across this variable we created previously. Choose it as a get. So that's making reference to the blueprint. Now that we're making reference to the blueprint, we can call the custom event we created previously. So pick up sword, connect this here. So we select this, we're back in the blueprint for the third-person character, and we need to make a reference to the blueprint for the sword for the pickup event. So it's essentially, this is a custom event here in the third-person character. We must make a link to this from this custom event to this blueprint here. So this blueprint is called BP sword pickup. So what I'll do, I'll go to inputs, I'll add inputs. Rather than having a traditional variable, I'll make this link. I'll type BP underscore sword pickup. So it's now making reference to this particular blueprint. So this is a custom event. I'll call this weapon. I'll compile. I'll save. Weapon, make sure it's connected here. So this is third person character. Go back to here. So now that we are back in the blueprint, we are creating to pick up the sword. We now have an additional parameter here because this function is now linking back to this custom event here, and this custom event has this parameter. So when you click here, that's this parameter here. So we're linking the event to the particular blueprint that we're interested in. So we now have to put something here. And the thing that we put in this area here will be reference to self. Type reference. So that will be going in here. You need to go back. Let's make this clearer. You need to drag this across. Set. and connect this, compile. Okay, let's now put the blueprint on the screen and see how it's working. So BP sword pickup. So let's drag this across. So I'll do two things. I'll put the weapon here, and I'll put a coin here to mark the weapon. So select this, hold on Alt on the keyboard, drag across with left click. Now move this across. I'm just putting the coin to mark the sword, and I'll press play. Here's the sword. So we can see the sword here. Go up to the sword, and now we can press E. That's the problem I was having. So that is the problem specifically with this mesh. This mesh was, so in order for it to look sizable, we had to like adjust the scaling, but when you adjust the scaling, it looks too big. So what I'll do, I'll press escape. What I'll do, I'll go back in the blueprint. I'll double click. So back in the blueprint, go back in the viewport, go back to the weapon mesh, put this to 1. Press enter. So you can't see it here. Press compile. Press save. Minimize. Press play. We can't see it here, but we know by this coin supposed to be the mesh. That's why I put this coin here. So if you go by it and you press E, you see the sword is appearing. So we know it's working. We know that we can pick up the sword. So we know it's working. But I want to be able to see the sword. So this is something I just thought about. So I press escape. So what I'll do, I'll right click and I'll create a new blueprint class. Actor, sword show. Double click and open. So I need to create a mesh. Static mesh. Sword mesh. Copy. Highlight. So the sword is now there. Not seeing this, so I press 40. You can see the sword here. Like 3, enter. So I want to scroll along. Click this. Go back here. Click the component and then overlap. So just like we did previously, this across, cast to VP, third person character. I'll duplicate this. Connect this. Connect this. Enable input. Disable input. Get player controller. Plug this in. Connect these things. Right click and press and look for the E key. On press, do once. Get the sword mesh. Drag this across. Want to have visibility. So basically what I'm creating is a blueprint such that once the character goes in sphere collision and they press E, what will happen is that the sword mesh will no longer be visible. And essentially what I'll be doing, I'll be putting two blueprints. I'll be putting the blueprint where you can pick up the sword and put the sword in your hand, and I'll be putting the blueprint where we can see the sword, but then the sword will disappear. That's the idea I'm running with. Go to the viewport, sword mesh, put 40, enter. Compile, save. So there'll be some kind of overlap between the different sword meshes. Press play. So you can see there's an overlap. So you see in one sword, the two swords are actually there, but you only see in one sword. The idea is that when you go into the sword and press E, one sword will disappear, next sword will appear in your hand. Okay, so one sword is appearing in your hand, the next one is not disappearing. So there you have it. So you have a situation now when your sword is disappearing, it is appearing in its character's hand. All right, so if we want to rotate this sword, let's escape. Back to the blueprint. What I'll do, right click, set, actor, relative, rotation. I'll connect this for the X for -90. And the weapon, I'll drag the weapon in here. Press compile, display. All right, so we have the sword here, and the sword is now rotated. It has been rotated 90 degrees, so it's looking better than before. Press space. So you can rotate the sword however you want it here. But that's simple adjustment to the blueprint. So there you have it. I'll end the video here.
That is it for this lecture. Do you want to learn more? Like and subscribe. You can also contact us, Impulse Response Enterprises Ltd.